All right, guys, we're going to get started. I think the live stream is going to have to wait till I've got a little more time to dig into that and get the right account signed in. Welcome, everybody. We got a few folks. I suspect a few more might join. Two new faces to the Business Model Lab, one being our guest, Ardilla. And welcome, Ardilla. And also Bethany. Welcome, Bethany. Hi. So I like to put new people on the spot. I hope you don't mind. If you would just kind of introduce yourself and tell us, how you came to Air Miners and Business Model Lab and anything else you'd like to share real quick.
Sure. Hi, I'm Bethany. I'm pretty new to Air Miners. I just joined last week or the week before and exploring all the channels. I work at University of British Columbia. We're a carbon mineralization lab. We, our main focus is looking at using mine tailings to sequester carbon. Mining is going to have to expand to meet all of the needs of our solar, wind, battery infrastructure. Mining is not going away. We need to make it low carbon, and potentially we can use it as a tool to remove carbon. So that's what we do. And we are a research group, and who knows what the future might hold. So I'm in this business model lab to kind of explore that side of things as well and kind of learn, which is why I'm here.
Cool. Thanks for joining, Bethany. Glad to have you. And Sung, let's do a quick reintro for you. You're still a fresh face here.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. Yeah, like Jeremy said, I'm fairly new to Air Miners. Been around 2 months or so, but new to the Business Model Lab. Just joined for the last sync we had earlier this month. Backgrounds in tech and previously entrepreneurship. I did a couple of sustainable food businesses straight out of college about 10 years ago. And then more recently, I've moved to San Francisco and I've been was working with Uber Eats, and before that, a fintech startup on the product side. So now had been bootstrapping a couple of ed tech startups, and now I'm doing that on the side and also looking to learn as much as I can about climate and decarbonization and carbon removal. So I think carbon removal is a really interesting space, and I'm looking forward to this talk because I'm pretty interested in some of the other ways, aside from sequestration, that we can actually utilize carbon, and Ardilla's company seems to be doing some interesting stuff in the space. If not with carbon dioxide directly, but certainly with carbon and some of those waste products. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Excellent. Great. Well, let's jump in. And basic format here is Ardilla is going to spend some time talking about herself, her experience getting to this point and starting her company, and then kind of give us the pitch, the plan, the idea behind Polima Furniture. And I've got a few questions teed up, but those are just really to get the conversation flowing. So if anything piques your curiosity while she's talking, or you've got some questions in mind, just save those, and we'll spend at least the second half of the hour letting you guys ask away. And yeah, and let's jump in. So Ardilla, do you have any slides or anything you want to share, or are you just going to be speaking today?
I have slides to show the product. So I can just share it has a share screen option. Yeah, I could just share those later when I get to that. Okay,
great. And in the meantime, I will make you a presenter so that you can do that when you're ready. I'm going to put myself on mute. You guys might hear I've got a puppy whining next to me. So yeah, and then Ardilla, I would say just jump in, and we'll look forward to hearing all about you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you guys for joining. I have been a member of Air Miners, I mean, almost for a year, I guess, coming soon. And I'm super grateful for this community for sure. So thanks so much for your support. Thank you, Jason. And I am the founder and CEO of Polima. I incorporated as a furniture company in January of 2020. Auspicious time. And prior to that, I was really just digging into materials and alternative materials made from waste and biology, going to conferences and just seeing like what kind of material I really wanted to be working with, because I knew I wanted a product. I thought I would do best if I had my own product. I was trying to do some consulting, supporting designers and other companies in finding and acquiring innovative materials, but I really wanted my own thing. So moving to California from the East Coast, I was introduced to the cannabis industry and introduced to people that are now my friends that are founders of a company called Restock. And now they've expanded to the Midwest, but starting out in California and picking up the cannabis stalks from farms that farmers just considered a waste product, and they didn't know what to do with it. It just starts piling up in a barn, and they don't know, they burn it. Sometimes they illegally dump it, therefore releasing all of that carbon back into the atmosphere. So this company started picking up that waste and turning it into paper products. And now they've moved on to plastic, and they need a lot of material. So they're in the Midwest. But just kind of like seeing that, and then also being inspired by Ecovative's work on the East Coast in New York. They made a material, and I think it's in storage. I can't find it. I have this from like 2016 or something. I have this little tiny, what they called a paper clip holder, which, everybody really needs one of those. It was just this little sample of this pressed hemp material. That's this hard, smooth material. And I thought of that, and I saw like this company using the cannabis stalks here in California for paper. I was like, okay, I think Ecovative might still source their hemp from like Europe or something. It's not New York hemp, which it could be. So I was like, I can make a low alternative. I had gone to school for interior design in Virginia, really focusing on these innovative new materials. Was I frozen?
You froze for a second, but the audio carried on, at least on
Okay, good.
So
I was like, I think everyone else is frozen. So yeah, that was my experience, was kind of like design. And prior to that, I was building natural houses made out of straw bale and cob, which is just hand sculpted mud houses. It's sand, clay, straw, and water. I was digging a foundation by hand, which is crazy. I was really buff, carrying buckets of gravel and like filling in a trench, like harvesting rocks from the river, crazy stuff. So I've always been interested in the built environment, and that's how I got here. I mean, the main reason that I'm doing any of this is to be creating wood alternatives. I love trees, and I don't think we should cut them down. I think we need to be creating habitat and creating ancient forests and protecting them. And we have so much abundance of waste. There's no reason that we should be growing or cutting down trees for a desk, for a table, for anything. It doesn't make any sense to me. We have so many alternatives available. So that's a bit about me.
Thanks. That's a great background, and maybe at this point, we'd love to see what you're building. Do you have some images, website, slides, whatever it is to share?
Sure. I just opened it. Where did it go? Here we go. Okay. I share. So we just unveiled these designs last week. Share screen. This one. Share. And I mean, I guess I'll just share it like that. So we have, this is like an image of the full table. We're still working on the color of the legs and how we really want to be finishing them. That's a really big discussion for us of what is the most sustainable way to be finishing the metal. We're sourcing recycled metal in Oregon. All of our prototyping is happening in Oregon right now, prototyping the material we had purchased in December of last year. Hello, Ryan. We purchased a hydraulic press from Ecovative, and I had it shipped to my prototypers in Oregon. And so they're the ones that are going to be doing the material prototyping just to make sure we have the recipe down. And then making the mold for the chair, because unlike lumber, which would be, you have like either you have to cut it down, right? You have to mill it in some way, but with our material, it's being pressed to the exact shape that we want so that it's zero waste. And so we get to make a mold that is this exact shape to press it into that chair back and that chair seat and the different parts of the table. That's kind of technical stuff. Let's see, we're trying to do like minimal parts, like making it as simple as possible. I was going to show you the table too, because we have one hydraulic press. We have some limitations on the size that we can press the material with or material into, because the press is only so big. And so the table is made of these separate different parts. And that is also so that we can use the same mold and make more like a cafe foretop in the future, because our target market right now to start with and our launch is direct to consumer, but then we want to do B2B for boutique hotels, offices, if there's still a thing, and restaurants. So if we take this middle part out, we had it designed so that those outer 4 pieces will just fit together, and we have a different size table. We'll have to redo the legs, but that's easy. Yeah, that's it. I have a lot of other things I could say. Are there any questions?
So would the furniture be shipped and then assembled by the end customer?
Correct. That is correct.
And then it's your composite material, which I think we'll definitely want to dig into a bit. And then the other one is that steel or aluminum?
Yeah,
or...
recycled steel.
Okay, got it. I'll jump in. I mean, the first question I have is, I see obviously you're making tables and chairs. I'm going to guess that you've thought, what else can we make with this stuff? Obviously you're not going to be relegated only to tables and chairs. So what would you see as other viable products that Polyma is interested? I mean, I totally get you. It's good to stick with a very narrow focus to begin with, and let's nail the tables and chairs thing, but what would be next?
Other hard wooden alternatives. So shelves, other things for the home, coffee tables, things like that. I don't think it makes a lot of financial sense to make really like small things. We have to make a mold for everything that we make. So that has a large capital input. So we're still kind of doing those calculations of like, does it make sense to make a hat hook or a tray, and those smaller things? I'm not sure yet.
You mentioned calculations, and I wanted to ask, I know that when we spoke last week, you had mentioned that a life cycle analysis is currently underway for Polyma. Would you tell us a little bit about how you're going about that and any preliminary findings that you might be able to share?
Our preliminary findings are really interesting. hemp holds a lot of material. And so when doing, I have never done an LCA before, but apparently when doing one, you kind of have to decide like what's in our scope and what's out of scope for what we're going to calculate versus not calculate. And because we are using any of the waste products that we're using, we've decided that that carbon footprint that say goes into producing the hemp is out of scope, because we're not asking a farmer to grow the hemp for us. We're just using what is left over that
Right.
they
Being produced or would have been produced anyway, regardless of your
Exactly.
activities or existence. I think that's fair.
Exactly. So with that in mind, and the farming of the hemp being out of scope, we found that in a 100-pound tabletop, it's very dense material. In a 100-pound tabletop, that is going to capture, let me see, 1.63 tons in each ton of weight. Hold on, that doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's around 1 ton. Oh no, I can't find it. Okay, I'm going to read this sentence to you because it's not saying what I wanted to say, but it says something. Based on our research, for 1,000 tables created, 81 tons of CO2 is captured. This is based on each table containing 100 pounds of hemp with 1.63 tons CO2 captured in each ton of hemp. 81 tons of carbon is the equivalent of taking 17.5 cars off the road or saving 9.3 homes energy use for the year in the US. So I wanted to talk about per table, but that's
great. I mean, that's not an insignificant number.
Yeah.
I'm curious if that takes into account the carbon cost, if you will, of the metal in production.
Yeah, so
that's just for that composite material, and it's okay if you don't.
Yeah, and so one other interesting fact is that we found is that just in one tabletop, and I'm forgetting the number now, but in one tabletop, there's enough captured carbon to cover the footprint of shipping it across the US, which is pretty incredible. That was really interesting. And as far as the metal goes, that's another like interesting conversation of like in or out of scope. And if we find a source of salvage or scrap metal that we're using, it's like, are we going to have to like consider the mining of the metal initially, or do we just consider the melting down of that metal and putting it into the steel rods? We're still doing that calculation now.
Lots of decisions to be made in this sort of analysis, and obviously they have to be so well documented, because 2 weeks later you'll forget what that decision was.
Right. Luckily, I'm not doing it. Luckily, I have support of other people doing it.
Yeah, and then for the transparencies, for the sake of transparency, that all has to be
yeah.
documented.
I definitely want it to be
transparent. You mentioned that the composite material in a table sequesters enough carbon to cover the footprint of cross-country shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean it's carbon neutral? As in?
It would depend where it was being shipped, I guess. I mean, we don't know yet. Right now, I mean, our goal is being a carbon negative product. So once we complete our calculations for everything, if we do come out positive, then we will be purchasing carbon offsets. I really like this company called Sea Trees. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but they are selling carbon offsets that support mangroves and protecting and planting mangroves, because apparently that weird watery soil that mangroves hold on to captures far more carbon than soil.
And yeah, tons of co-benefits as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think just that's one of the interesting and things about a life cycle analysis, and one reason why it's absolutely a necessity if you're going to make any of these claims is that you can just get these surprising results. You can look at a process that looks like it may be, oh, this is definitely carbon negative, this is good for the planet, and you could be wrong. You really do have to run the numbers, or vice versa. Something that you wouldn't have expected can be very much carbon negative.
Yeah.
And so that's why that type of analysis is so critical.
We were surprised. Bethany, were you going to ask a question?
Oh, I was just wondering who is doing the life cycle analysis.
I have, his name is Tom, and he is currently at the Presidio School in San Francisco. And he's transitioning his career from like supply chain into more of an environmental space. So he's supporting me with that, as well as a woman named Oakley, who previously has been a chemical engineer. So some very smart people. Yes, and Jason's helping me now.
Well, I actually had a question. Yeah, in terms of distribution, it sounds like each one's a custom build, so you send out, or yourself, or how do you get product into the hands of people? And what I'm thinking about is, in the future, would you approach, say, IKEA or somewhere else about more high volume distribution?
I hope you guys can hear me, because everyone else is okay. Now you're moving. Part A. So we're launching on Indiegogo with pre-sales. And so we're going to get a big chunk of pre-orders and then manufacture all of those. And at that point, once the Indiegogo is closed, I want to start like another wait list for another batch. So I want to just keep producing in batches that have already been ordered. And IKEA, I'm resistant to partnering with IKEA. They're doing some really good things for them. And one part of my resistance is that I don't want them to steal my idea. I'm like, they could do whatever they want, and they have all the capital and resources to do everything possible. So until like things are really secure in my end, maybe 5 years or so, then I would think about talking to them. But until then, I'm pretty cautious of partnerships with larger brands that have more capital.
Understood. Does that mean you don't currently, but are working towards filing patents?
Great question on the patents. I've had mixed advice. Is that what it is? Mixed. Some people have told me that the process is not innovative enough to get a patent. That's a part of getting a patent, is that it needs to be innovation. And all I'm doing is pressing organic material together. I'm not editing any DNA, or I'm not doing any like bioscience at all. It's just pressing it, which other people have done. I would like to find a way to get a patent. I think someone suggested recently, like, well, maybe you should do something that maybe you don't even have to do, that makes it seem innovative. I was like, then maybe I could patent it. That's a good idea. So we're figuring that out.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to think about ways to protect your IP here. Yeah. I'm far from a patent expert, so I wouldn't be the person to ask, but yeah, it would seem that that would be a useful step.
Definitely.
If you can do it, or find some other way, again, to protect what you're doing, and you can confidently approach someone like your process. From a carbon perspective, how is this process or company different than building furniture out of wood?
Well, for one, we are waste free, right? So instead of having that, even the sawdust or whatever else would come from producing something from wood, and we are not, wood needs to be sealed in some way, painted or varnished or whatever, oiled. And because of the heat and pressure, the way I think of it is like the heat and pressure like cauterizes the hemp in a way. It just kind of like seals it, so that we don't have to add anything additionally. And I forget, I wanted to say, so like plywood has some gnarly glues in it, right? And we're not using any resin and we're not using any glues. The only binder is a soy protein that's a waste product from making soybean oil. And it's something about that protein with the heat and the pressure just supports everything and staying together. So those are, and I want to do some carbon calculations around using like the difference between native hardwood harvesting and using for furniture versus our process. So we want to do those calculations to really be able to compare.
Yeah, I think consumers would be interested in, just thinking about it as like what's the business as usual type of furniture, and then what are you doing, and how might the two compare? When I think of business as usual furniture, I guess my mind goes to wood as the material.
Yeah.
Song, do you have a question?
Yeah, Ardilla, I'm curious, it sounds like it's a fairly new process for you in terms of understanding the manufacturing side of things. Have there been any things that you've been really surprised about, or learned that you didn't expect before going into building these tables and
everything? I don't know. I think the biggest surprise was how expensive it is to get a 12,000-pound piece of equipment from New York to Oregon. I was very surprised at how much it costs just to have a company come and pick it up and put it on a truck, and then another company come and pick it off the truck and put it on the ground. Very expensive.
Was that the hydraulic press? Was it something else?
Yeah. So now thinking about like, okay, right now the hydraulic press is at the prototyper's shop, and I'm looking for where we're really going to have our manufacturing facility. And I don't know if that'll be in Oregon. I want it to be in California. I think our brand is very like coastal California. And I would like to really integrate in a community like Santa Barbara. But I'm imagining having to move the press again. Like, oh no, I don't want to.
And so you're based in LA, but you had the press brought up to this prototyping facility in Oregon.
Yeah. It's hard to find freelancing material scientists that have worked with biomass and hydraulic presses before. It's pretty niche. But I'm still looking for a mechanical engineer who has experience with mold making, if anyone knows that person.
Have you posted on the jobs channel in Air Miners?
No, but I will.
Worth a shot.
Yeah, it is.
There's more than a few mechanical engineers, I'm sure, stalking the virtual hallways of Air Miners. So
Virtual hallway.
Worth it. So I've got a question. Feel free to dodge or not answer whatever you're not comfortable with here. But I want to ask about funding. Like at this point, you've mentioned you've had to do some expensive things. Has it all been self-funded, or are you, and if it has, that's great. I am going to guess it's not always going to be. So let's talk about funding up till now, and then sort of funding from here into the future, and how that's worked and how you see that working.
Yeah, so far it has been self-funded, and we're applying for a lot of grants right now, and there's like the Healing Curve grant, applying for that, applying for some like women founders grants, and because I want to not give away too much capital before our Indiegogo launch. So I'm trying to get as much done on my own prior to that, but I need about 150,000 to like finish our prototyping, pay a great marketing firm for Indiegogo, you know, get the digital assets designed, do all those things. So it's like a little bit of money. And then after that, once we have all those orders and kind of have like proof of concept done, then I really want to bring in more venture capital.
I had a question about the manufacturing process. You've spoken about molds and having to change out the molds to do smaller products like hooks and stuff like that, whether that's worthwhile. Is it a wet process, a dry process? You talk about heat, pressure, moisture, and resin and binders and glues. And it just, I'm really intrigued by the material itself. It almost sounds like a hemp polymer, which is interesting. No, it's not. So then, yeah, correct me. I'm curious to know what it is.
I would say it starts out as a moist mixture. And the only ingredients are the hemp waste and the soybean protein, which is not that fancy. We're just buying it at a feed store, like they use it for animal feed, and a little bit of water, and then it's pressed. So it's not technically a polymer, and there's no like resin or glues or anything like that. It's not being like poured into a shape. It's just those, it's kind of like baking it almost.
And then the final material, after you apply the heat and the pressure to squeeze the moisture out, it comes out hard. Is it, can you hear me?
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, no, I saw you waving. The durability of the material over time, is it biodegradable or is it non-biodegradable? I mean, what's the end result look like?
It's technically biodegradable. It's very dense and very hard. So it would take some time. But we are still, once we're ready, we're going to be doing those like internal strength tests and moisture tests and doing all of that to really see the numbers on the durability, but it is biodegradable.
Ardilla, could the materials be, I guess, so let's say a table reaches end of life, could it then be repurposed to another table? Is there sort of a cradle to cradle aspect of this?
We definitely want to reclaim that material, and we're going to start experimenting with what we can do with it. Because it's so hard, I'm wondering about chipping it, like chip, I know it sounds like shipping, but chipping it again. I don't know if that'll be the best result. Someone, and I don't know enough about this, should probably post maybe about it, but someone suggested creating biochar with the tabletops. And I don't know enough about making biochar to know if that's a good solution or not. That's something else that we're exploring. But we definitely want to be reclaiming the materials. We could reuse the metal. I can't imagine the steel legs really getting that damaged. So yeah, we're planning that and figuring out what the best business model is to reclaim.
Biochar is a great thing to look into. Is this sort of circular aspect of the product? Is it built into the business model at all at this point? As in, we will buy back, or we will, pay for shipping of the chairs when you're done with them.
The end of life.
Hopefully that's not for 25 or 100 years because they're so durable and people love them for a long time. But is there any of that built into your messaging, marketing, or overall business model?
We want it to be. We haven't quite gotten there yet. And we want to figure that out. Long term, everyone, especially with entrepreneurs, talks about scaling, right? How are you going to scale this company? And then I end up thinking about like a 1 mile by 1 mile square foot, like giant manufacturing facility. And it makes me want to like run away and scream like, no, we're not doing that. But what I want is like different regional scale, like replicable models, not like a scalable thing, but replicable in different parts of the US and different parts of the world, that can be using regional waste. It doesn't even have to be hemp. Like we can figure this out with a lot of different agricultural byproducts. And so one idea I have kicking in the back of my head is like the idea of once we are regional, that it'll be a lot easier to recollect any unwanted furniture, because it wouldn't have to be shipped from New York to California or something like that. Like it could be a lot shorter, like maybe people drop it off. So we're still playing with what that will look like, because shipping is expensive.
Yeah. Particularly now during COVID, shipping prices have increased. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yeah,
yeah, I love the regional idea. Have you looked at any other businesses that have regional manufacturing centers using local feedstocks for product? I mean, I don't know of any offhand. I'm just wondering if you had any examples that you considered. I'm sure it exists.
Right. There's an amazing architecture firm that is my dream to work with and partner with one day. They do architecture consulting and material development. They're in Copenhagen. They're called Lendiger. It's spelled Lendiger, but yeah. And they really inspired me several years ago with something that they called a resource city. And similar idea of like, okay, let's revitalize some of our industrial areas and just take in local waste and make a new material and teach people, like, you know, we'll employ people with how to be upcycling this into something new. And they've actually built an example of that now in Denmark somewhere. And I would love to go see it.
Can I ask, why did you choose metal legs instead of wooden?
Like wood, like tree wood?
Yeah.
Oh, because I love trees so much. I don't
want to cut them down.
Cut up their bodies so that I can sit at a desk.
Sure. Have you thought about using your material to replace like flat pack, like MDF, HDF materials?
Yes. I don't know how to
that makes sense. I just, I guess this gets into the materials development side of this. If you're, I missed the very beginning of this, right? So I missed if you described your material other than hemp with soy protein. But do you know what's causing the binding action? Can you take any biomass waste and replace the hemp with something else, or is hemp the critical part to make this?
There's something special about hemp that has. I'm not a scientist, but there's something special about the hemp itself that is different than other plant material, but I still believe that we could figure it out with other agricultural waste. And it may not be always as structural, but like I've seen examples of a lot, you know, you see lamps, like pendant lamps made with different materials, different pressed ag waste. So I do want to keep experimenting with that once we have this going.
Is the hemp supply chain robust, or is that just kind of localized to?
Yes, it's very robust. I mean, there's so many farms, and I forget the number, but the majority of what they grow is waste. 80% of the material they grow is waste. I mean, they're just harvesting the flower. In some cases, the farms that I'm working with are harvesting the flower, and then the rest is just leftover.
I have a question too about we haven't talked about the feel of the chairs and the tables so much, and I feel like that's part of this being a D2C product, and you really want to, like, you know, have users experience and customers experiences. So what does it feel like to sit on the chair? What does it feel like to eat at the table? How does it feel different, similar? Like, yeah,
it feels amazing. in my imagination.
Sorry, it hasn't been built. Sorry, I thought you had some prototypes already up for some reason, but
nope. So it's, you know, the best experience that anyone has ever had in my imagination.
The ultimate sitting experience.
The ultimate.
Can I ask a question more about the on the just business development side?
Yeah.
Totally switching gears from the material, and but I was just wondering about, you know, from idea to business, and what your process was for kind of like market research and customer development, and like what kind of what you've done in that space to make you confident that this would be a viable business opportunity.
Yeah, I was lucky to attend a startup incubator like late 2019 into early 2020, and was able to do some market research there in like targeting conscious consumers, and the things that they want. And what we found was that people who self-identify as conscious consumers really want to be using their purchasing power for the best possible thing they can for the earth, like within their reasonable budget. But they can only purchase what's available to them. And so a lot of people said, like, if they need to buy something and there isn't a sustainable alternative, like they're still going to buy something. So they're still going to buy that crappy version. And so we found that we have this niche opportunity to be supplying something that the furniture market isn't really giving customers. And it's something that they are purchasing anyway. And it's something that they do want to be making a smart ecological choice on. We're going to continue to do more testing like that before our Indiegogo launch. There's a firm that we're going to be working with that is going to do some of that market research for us, seeing like the best way to communicate that to our target consumers.
And I guess just your personal, like, what was the timeline between you? I don't know, you mentioned that you saw this paperclip holder to, I don't know, maybe like, when did you incorporate in that process? When did that happen?
Yeah, I would say as many years. Probably like in like 2016, I really started diving into alternative materials. And then in 2017, I moved to California, moved to San Francisco. I was so excited about San Francisco because there's a startup there called MycoWorks. I don't know if you're familiar, but they first started experimenting with mycelium-based building materials, and now they're doing an alternative leather made from mycelium. But I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm from the South. I grew up in Kentucky. I thought, gosh, if this startup is in San Francisco, there must be other amazing people in San Francisco too. And so I just got to meet more and more and more MycoWorks, more and more people in the space, and able to develop my idea like incrementally of like, what's the best material to use? How can I be the most circular? How can I like be in the most service for forests and be the most profitable?
So as a startup entrepreneur, no, you go ahead, Ryan. I'll wait.
Yeah, sorry. I come from a material science background, so I have a lot of materials questions that I'm trying not to ask as materials questions. More about material selection. I guess there's a growing movement to make aluminum from renewables or like hydropower, right? Where you can kind of reduce all the carbon footprint of aluminum production. So have you looked into replacing your steel with fully renewably produced aluminum and things like that?
Let's talk, Ryan. We're like very yes. We're really trying to find like the best metal, and it's been a conversation that we haven't like landed on yet. So cool. I would talk about that.
And just as a quick drop into your IP bucket, I most likely in your pressing process, you're heating your hemp and is releasing some kind of hemp oil. I guess we'll keep it simple. That will polymerize upon cooling. I bet if there is some small additive you can add to that to actually improve that process, which you could then start building IP on. But
I'll send you. So we're basing all of our assumptions off of research from this, like the premier manufactured wood man of US. So he has a published research paper, and I would love to share it with you and see what your thoughts are.
Jack, I think you actually you're doing something with polymers. You probably actually may know more about polymers than me. I'm a inorganic specialist.
Yeah, no, I'm looking mostly at carbon fiber and carbon composites. So a little different world than where Ardilla is playing with. But I do like some of the fibrous properties of hemp. Certainly there's some work being done at University of Michigan and some other places on replacing carbon fibers with natural fibers, which is an interesting and compelling idea. There's also some advances and tweaks to allow these natural fibers to be electrochemically advantageous versus pure carbon fibers. So it eliminates some of the carbon out of the process. But yeah, it's an interesting thing she's working on, and I'm curious to hear more about her materials. But I also had a question about her just startup focus as an executive entrepreneur. How do you divide your day, right? How much goes into the manufacturing bucket, and how much goes into the branding bucket, and how much goes into the administrivia bucket? I'm curious when I speak to other entrepreneurs to see how they devote their time, because I think a lot of success comes down to how much time you devote on what and how much traction you gain in each bucket and when, and the pacing of it. I've talked to different entrepreneurs and it works differently for each one of them. So I'm always curious to hear that answer to that question.
I am so blessed to have so much support. Like, people have just shown up and thought, this is incredible. Like, we want to support you. So I'm so grateful for the support that I have, both in like operations and prototyping and marketing and social media. My furniture designer, awesome. So right now I'm doing a lot of like, sometimes I have to be the one to do something, but I've been able to do a lot of delegating too, which has been really, 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 really helpful. I still have a job, and that's why I'm able to self-fund this. So I work part-time for 3 Degrees, which is like a carbon offset and renewable energy certificate company. So, half of my time gets to go there, which I'm excited to really be able to focus full time on Polyma. But for now, there's half of that. And other than that, I have like meetings with, weekly meetings with operations, with graphic design, with social media and marketing, have monthly meetings with my business advisors, have like bi-weekly meetings with my furniture designer. So my calendar is just full. And my next meeting is with this guy from Green Product Awards, which I'm excited. He wants me to apply for next year. They already closed for 2021, but pretty cool.
Good luck with it all. It's always about juggling balls, right? So good luck with it.
So much juggling. Bye, Song.
Bye, Song. Thanks for joining. I've got sort of one parting question for you as we start to wrap up. Ardilla, can you give us an idea of what Polyma looks like in sort of the 1, 3, and 5 year time horizons? I know you mentioned an Indiegogo campaign. When might we expect to see that launch, and what happens after that?
So July, Indiegogo launch. That's the target. And once we have that, then we get to find our manufacturing facility and setting that up, and then producing, you'd like to be producing by the end of the year. So that would be year 1. By year 5, I really want to have replicated this process into another location. Like, I really want to start seeing what we can do with, sure, it could be with hemp again, but I am really curious to see what other kind of materials we could use. A friend of mine said he can connect me with the Palm Wonderful people. So we could be using like pomegranate waste and almond waste also. So I would really like to start like playing with that. I would say probably in year 3, just start experimenting with other kinds of byproduct to see how else we might expand.
Great. Any other questions, guys?
Thank
All
you,
right.
Ryan.
Ardilla.
Will you put your email in the chat?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ardilla, thank you so much for joining and talking about Polyma. We wish you all the luck in the world as you continue to push this company forward. If any of us or the air miners community as a whole can be of service, that's why air miners exist. So feel free to lean on this community. I think there's a lot of good people in here that can help you with various parts of your journey here. So it's a good resource.
Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. This is I can't wait to like join the next one. I didn't know this group was even happening. So
I'll put a quick plug. I know most of us have left, but next week on Wednesday, same time slot, we'll have the Center for Negative Emissions Technologies, which is a consulting firm that is purely focused on helping their clients implement carbon dioxide removal technologies and strategies that meld with their business model. They're also working with public sector clients as well. So we're going to learn how people are integrating and doing carbon removal from a consulting standpoint.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Good luck
Thanks,
with it.
Ardilla. Appreciate you.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Thank
lean on any of us if you need it.
Thank you so much. Have
All
a
right,
good day.
take care. Bye.
You guys. Brian, nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.